John Cheek from Grace Episcopal Church in Great Barrington. We're a church without a building as we rent space for our worship on Sunday and another for our office and small chapel. Our largest ministry is Gideon's Garden, now in its second decade, providing fresh garden produce for needy families, food pantries, and community meals. It's also a place of learning for our youth supervisor and young apprentices, led by the Reverend Jen Blesh, program director. I grew up in the Episcopal Church. There are happy memories, but others that were not. Much of what I heard in my youth was about a faith based on fear. Do this, believe that, or this will happen. If it had not been for the music, I might never have learned anything. But there's much great theology in hymns, especially those in our tradition, and I've always loved and been moved by the union of powerful words and music. Missing for me also was a connection between the injustices outside the church's doors and the gospel preached inside. I was a child of the 50s and 60s in the South. Civil rights and integration were always in the news, but we heard nothing about it in church. Outside, the Jim Crow laws were gradually being dismantled, though huge barriers and much conflict remained. When I went off to college, I did not attend church, except as a paid soloist in a choir. Many of you know that I made my living as an opera and concert singer. It was through music that I sought and found transcendence for a good part of my life. My first year of graduate school in New York City was interrupted by a not unexpected draft notice. I found out about the U.S. Army Chorus from a friend, applied, auditioned, and was accepted. So I spent 4 years just outside of Washington, D.C. at Fort Myer, Virginia. We performed for occasions of state and at the White House. In my last year there, I accepted the post of chorister and soloist in the choir of our national cathedral. There I had my first experience of the great Anglican musical tradition on the highest level and in a magnificent building. But there was also something else that I had not experienced in a church. Powerful sermons about social justice and morality, especially as related to the civil rights movement and the war in Vietnam. Dean Francis Sayre, grandson of Woodrow Wilson, was an imposing 6'6" presence in the pulpit. It was what I had always been missing, connecting the gospel with the real world outside the church walls, and it was a revelation. Still, I remained outside of the institutional church for many more years until we moved from New York City to the Berkshires. My wife Lee was ill with cancer and looking for a church home. She chose what was then St. James in Great Barrington. I was gradually drawn back into the church because of the friendly welcome I received there. Later, on bike rides with my dear friend and retired priest, the Reverend Ted Cobden, I began speaking about what a bad reputation many Christians had in the secular world. Much of it was like my childhood experience, fear-based, exclusionary, and of course, homophobic. And our own Episcopal Church was in the midst of controversy over the ordination of Gene Robinson and grappling with issues of human sexuality. Finally, Ted challenged me to do something about all of this. My work at that time, with its irregular schedule and frequent travel, kept me from participating in vestry and diocesan ministry. So Ted suggested that I run for deputy to General Convention, and I did. Since 2006, I have attended every General Convention representing our diocese. From the beginning, I was hooked. The gathering of our church leaders, grappling with important theological issues, and the powerful daily worship kept me going through the long days from 7 a.m. until well into the evening. While I've never had one of those God moments of blinding light, I did have moments of great emotion last year on our diocesan pilgrimage to the Holy Land. The first was on a mountaintop in the Judean desert, watching the sun rise and having Eucharist overlooking the road from Jericho to Jerusalem, where the parable of the Good Samaritan took place. The second was at a Eucharist overlooking the Sea of Galilee, a place of extraordinary peace and beauty. The last was in the Church of the Assumption in Nazareth, reading aloud about the angel's appearance to Mary. Since the end of my full-time singing career, I've worked much more on the parish and diocesan levels. I'm in my first year of EFM, Education for Ministry, a 4-year course on the Bible and church history. These are hard times for the institutional church, and we struggle with low membership as we try to become more faithful to the gospel in the so-called post-Christian era. I believe that we as a church must go beyond our walls all the time, and that Sundays should help to fuel our mission to, as we pray, have thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. COVID-19 has changed our lives in so many ways. I miss being part of corporate worship on Sunday and raising my voice with others. Psalm 137 says it best. How can we sing the Lord's song upon an alien soil? But I believe better times will come, and I hope the Episcopal Church remains as a humble but persistent witness to mercy and justice. Thank you.